Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. My name is Cheryl Pounders, and I am the Talent Acquisition Manager with Smartbridge. With me today, I have my two coworkers and our subject matter experts for RPA. I have Raul and Thomas. All right, well, today we are going to be talking about what is RPA, how do you break into RPA if you are looking to start your career as an RPA developer or even switch careers and get into RPA developing, and what process Smartbridge goes through when we are looking for RPA developers, and how we use different tools to actually screen our candidates. So starting off about what is RPA. I know when Smartbridge brought on RPA as a service line, a lot of my family and friends, they were thinking more along the lines of, Will Smith and iRobot type of situation. And for us, that's not what we're dealing with. One of you guys want to elaborate a little bit on what RPA is for us?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Cheryl. So first, I want to give a quick introduction about myself. I'm an RPA architect for Smartbridge, and I've been in the IT industry for 10 plus years. Now, talking about RPA, RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation, and it specifically refers to the use of software robots to automate mundane repetitive tasks. Those are the basics of RPA. Thomas, if you want to add.
Yeah, Raul, thank you so much. Let me introduce myself. My name is Thomas. I'm a RPA developer, and I have more than 8 years of experience in the IT business. Just to complement what Raul said, RPA emerged as a necessity to automate multiple repetitive tasks that are time-consuming for most of the people that are involved in the IT industry, for finance, manufacturing, procurement, all these departments. And the tools and platforms that RPA implements is a layer of software that is going to allow you to automate this task over an existing platform that you're using nowadays. So we need to think about these robots as a digital workforce, not a physical robot itself. So that is going to make the process more efficient, reliable, and quicker.
I think Blue Prism states on their website that RPA is your new favorite coworker. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So with RPA, I know this year, 2020, since COVID has started, there have been a lot of changes that have happened with different needs because of workforce being laid off or things happening due to our current market. What changes have we experienced or have you guys seen with RPA being affected or positively affecting our clients?
Yeah, so one of the impacts after COVID hit is that the companies are now being pushed to accelerate their digital transformation. Obviously, the digital transformation started several years ago, but companies were slowly executing it. COVID kind of makes you rush into that digital transformation, not because it's something you want to do, but more because it's something you need to do. It gets to the point where even for some companies, it's like automate or die. Not all of them, but there could be situations like that. So basically, RPA was already booming before even COVID hit. So now with COVID and everything becoming digital, everyone has to jump into the digital transformation. RPA, as I stated at the beginning, refers to the automation of repetitive mundane tasks. But that's just the beginning of automation. From robotic process automation, you can jump into the smart robotic process automation, where you integrate other technologies like AI and machine learning. But overall, COVID has increased the demand for RPA for all the roles.
Okay. And I know that RPA, as you said, was already an emerging technology. I know I read that It kind of started back in 1990 as just a simple, screen scraping type of technology. And then since 2016, when Blue Prism and UiPath and Automation Anywhere, everybody started coming onto the market, it has really started booming, or really boomed. And then with everything with COVID, everybody trying to put everything in a virtual or digital world. With those changes and with everybody trying to jump on this, there's not enough developers to really keep up with the demand and the increase in the jobs that are currently out there. I read an article in AZ Big Media that back in 2016, consumers were spending around 73 million on RPA software, and in 2021, that's estimated to jump up to 272 million. And that's just on the software. The actual services, like things that Smartbridge provides, they are looking at that to be a $952 million industry come 2021. So that's a lot of work taking place with robotic process automation. And so there's a lot of jobs open. I know within Smartbridge, we are looking at training individuals for those positions. If somebody was wanting to start their career in RPA as an RPA developer, can anyone do it? Can, just anyone volunteer for that? Or what kind of basics do people need to know to be successful in RPA development?
I can answer that question, yeah. Especially, Cheryl, we need to think about RPA as an emerging field. As you already mentioned, most people right now in different companies are trying to train their own staff into RPA, but most of them don't know where to start. The first thing that we need to know is that the RPA developer might not be a heavy developing coding position, especially for a developer that is already expert or have certain familiarity with JavaScript, C#, Python, Ruby, most of these new trend languages. But most of the basic concepts of programming are required, like how to make these logic statements, if, else, whiles, loops. All these basic programming skills should be mandatory, especially because you are going to be using it on an everyday fashion when you are automating tasks. But also it's required that you have certain knowledge and experience of or object-oriented programming. Basically, because when you are using an RPA platform like UiPath, Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, you need to identify elements on the screen using different methods. But most of these elements have certain properties or attributes that a background of oriented object programming can give you. For example, selectors, CSS class for a web page, HTML coding. All these little things are helpful. But most of the requirements that we have from the RPA platform that we know does not require a high level of coding. It's good to know it, but if you have certain foundation, you can also be proficient as an RPA developer. I think that role can complement this information with certain skills that are required for an RPA developer.
Yeah, so I think Thomas said it right. The only thing I would highlight here is that specifically for RPA, I would break the developer role into categories. The first one being the citizen developer, which refers to business users that actually become or want to become developers. And the second one being an RPA developer just by itself, which is the kind of role that we are looking for, right? Citizen developer stands more for when a company starts their RPA journey and some users find about RPA, they download a free tool and they start building automations for the processes they think it's worth automating because they're repetitive, because they don't like it. That's a citizen developer. But we, as a consulting specialized company, we do enterprise level work. We deploy processes in the back office that potentially are going to impact the whole company. So for that, we go into the RPA developer role. And for that, we need the skills that Thomas just mentioned, which is basically the basics of programming skills.
Okay. So if a candidate was out there and say that they have some of those basics and have like object-oriented programming and some C# knowledge or something of that nature, where could they get started? If somebody doesn't immediately just hire them to train them, what could they do on their own?
All right. So most of these new softwares, they have free trials. If you go to the web and Google RPA and the top softwares, you can get a free edition or at least a trial edition to start getting the feeling of it. And the other thing, that's the first thing, right? And also most of these tools have training portals, and most of them are free. Sometimes even the certifications are free. So kind of what you see with like the Google certifications, RPA is kind of in the same trend, where training, certification, and even the platform is free for you to learn. So that's what I would suggest. The other thing is I would go back to my college days and review all the basics of programming, like objects, variables, classes, all of that. Because in the end, RPA, and as Thomas mentioned, RPA still requires you to have a programming mindset, even though it's most of the technologies are drag and drop. You will still need your programmer mind to execute your code. Thomas, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, just to give more information about it, the most important step that you need to take is to pick up a platform. Right now, we have multiple vendors providing RPA solutions. The most popular ones, we already mentioned them, UiPath, Prism Automation Anywhere. But this is going to be the foundation of what is going to be your RPA journey as a developer, because based on the platform that you choose, you will see the tools available and the resources and the community behind it. Most of the learning experience that you're going to get is from the real-time, real scenarios that you're going to be presented. Most of the community forums, as Ron mentioned, provide a lot of educational training for free. So that's one of the things that I would like to highlight. Choosing the platform, the correct platform. If you want to be curious about it, you can choose multiple platforms, one after the other, to compare and be sure what RPA product will fit the needs that you're having.
Okay. Well, I know with Smartbridge, we are looking for more than just a developer. You know, we are a consulting company, and so everybody within our company is considered a consultant. So not only do you have to have those developing skills, you know, the technical know-how, you also have to have soft skills. So if we were talking about what Smartbridge is looking for beyond just a developer, what are some of the skills that people should have or should be expected to have when they're coming into a consulting firm and going to be a consultant?
Right. Yeah. So us being a consulting company, one of the number one skills is going to be communication. Even if they're applying for an RPA developer, that it's more a technical consultant role, they still need their communication skills have to be excellent. As consultants, we're always facing with clients, no matter what our role is. So even if you're in the background, and the other thing is that RPA is process-oriented by nature. And by being process-oriented, it means that you need to understand the process, and that will take you to direct interaction with your clients. So I would say communication is a very important one. The other thing is that as a consulting company, we play in teams, so we work in teams. Teamwork is another very important skill we need to have. And also, RPA has different roles. So in a project, you will have your role, and you'll have to interact with the other roles to achieve your objectives, right? Finally, as a consultant, you will always need to be prepared. You're always the expert, so you need to be prepared ahead of time for the project you're gonna engage in, reading, training, doing whatever it takes to be ready to take on the project the way it should. And then finally, you need to like what you're doing. So if you're gonna be an RPA developer, you need to like it. You need to like learning, digging into it. RPA is a very fast-moving world, so every 1 or 2 months you will get new technology coming in. I would say if you like it, you will always be looking like, what's the newest thing? What should I learn now? Or even something you didn't know but that was there, but it's really helpful for your project. So that's what I would say are the consulting skills, Cheryl.
Okay. Thomas, anything to add to that?
Yes, mainly, I would like to summarize it up. Thinking about the skills that are really important. Communication is key, as Ro mentioned. You need to always be in touch with every one of the team members during a project. Collaboration. You need to play along as a team to get the bigger goals completed on time and with the professionality needs that you have. You need to be confident of your work. You are always going to be the expert, and you need to provide this confidence to your customer and to your teammates. And especially, you need to have passion for what you're doing. If you like research, if you like testing, investigation, creating new logic and programs to make it life easier for somebody, I think that RPA is going to be a really good track for you.
Great. So with Smartbridge and our process, what we kind of put individuals through when they are looking to join our team, we have a multi-step process that we put everybody through. And we start out with one-way video interviews. It's a great way for individuals to show us their communication style and that they're able to really get their point across when they're talking. So we always put individuals through one-way video interviews and then online testing, especially when candidates are coming out of school and they don't have a lot of work knowledge or work experience, or even internships that they can show us, you know, hey, this is what I did with what I learned in school. We will do some online testing to vet their skills and just kind of see where their baseline is, where they're starting at. And then also when we do our panel interviews, we ask individuals to do a little mini presentation. That way, again, we're checking their communication skills. So that way we know when they're in front of a client, they're going to be comfortable in front of a client and talking to them. And then, you know, at the end, when we're actually doing a more one-on-one kind of interview with a director. So there's, you know, the technical aspect of the interviews, even when in the face-to-face interviews or in the state of time, the Zoom interviews, where we kind of talk about technical skills and then also looking at their communication skills. So we are constantly checking both of those things to make sure that we have a candidate who will succeed not only technically, but with the soft skills. Both of you guys have been through versions of our recruitment process. Is there anything that you kind of want to add about when you, because both of you actually do the interviews for me when we get to a little bit more technical point, what would you like to add?
So we typically jump in for technical interview, and what we are looking for is basically the technical skills you need, the ones we just mentioned. We look for basics of object-oriented programming, basics of C#, some technical things like if you know how servers interact with each other, some SQL database knowledge. That's pretty much what we'll look for. Yep. Thomas. You're on mute, Thomas.
Uh-oh.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, another thing to notice is that during this process, when we're doing the presentation interview, most of the candidates are nervous because they don't have enough experience working in the IT industry. That's something really normal nowadays because most of the people think that if you are fresh out of college, you don't have experience, you're not going to get in a position where you're going to start your career in an IT company. The best thing that I can think of is that when you are doing your presentation interview, just think about all the projects where you collaborated. Think about all the possibilities of you applying the same knowledge that you have in college into your company. What's the thing that you are going to add to the company to bring value into it? So that they can know that you are going to be a good team member besides also being a good developer, because you can be the best developer in the world, but if you don't work as a teammate and if you don't collaborate with the customer, your co-workers, the company, it's going to be really hard to get started in your career as an RPA developer. That's one of the tips that I would like to give. Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, as we're wrapping things up, I do want to open it up for questions. So if anybody does have any questions, feel free to ask those. I know that a question that had been asked to me was, for you guys, when you were starting to learn RPA and transitioning your careers into the RPA service line, what did you find the most difficult?
Well, definitely the most difficult thing was the learning curve, because when you are starting to work with any other development platform, you already know exactly how the things are going to behave. With RPA, you have multiple possibilities, because you can actually start working in a simple automation with a simple application on a single machine, but it gets more complex when you're interacting between multiple systems, between legacy applications that are like software before 1990, that doesn't have exactly the most user interface friendly applications. These kind of integrations, when you are trying to make legacy systems migrate information from one part to another system, all these little tricks that you need to know when you are automating tasks, like clicking an element before it exists, all these little things. That's the most complex part from my perspective and my experience, because you need to learn those things at the same time that you need to implement them sometimes. So you need to always be researching, testing, troubleshooting, so you get to the best solution, and always check the best practices of your platform. Most of the time, we always try to take the shortcut, but when you are actually working with a client or a customer, you always need to put in place the best practices. So those are the things that I think were the most difficult at the beginning.
Good. So to add to what Thomas said, I think RPA by itself, as I said earlier, it's process-based. One of the things is that as a developer, you might already get the process kind of processed for you. All you need to do is kind of do the development, but you also need to understand a little bit about the process and what your objective is. The other thing is, like Thomas said, RPA is a multi-tool, so it kind of interacts with any system. So it's kind of different among other technologies where you just specialize in one thing, because potentially every automation you do is going to interact with different systems. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, the RPA world moves really fast right now because it's booming really really intense. So every technology you pick is going to be updating every 2-3 months. You just need to be catching up real fast. We have some time dedicated to that, and sometimes it's even for us it's hard to catch up with all the new things that come up because they just come up so fast. So those will be the challenging things to me.
Okay. And what industries do you see using RPA the most?
Talking about industries, I don't see any restrictions at all. I think it goes across the whole thing: healthcare, retail, food, fast food services, real estate. I'm just talking based on the clients we had. Oil and gas. So we've seen all across the board. I don't think there's any specific rule for anything. I think we can split more in departments, kind of thing. So if we say like finance, then finance is a good place to start automation, because most of the finance information is structured and the input and the outputs, right? There are numbers, so you need to make them match or and things like that. But then there are other things. We also seen it in manufacturing companies where there are things like from their supply chain or their inventory trackings that they can automate. So I would say it can apply to any industry. Yeah. And I just mentioned some of them, but I would say any industry would be there. And,
okay. Sorry. So we had a question about what are some of the processes that are suitable for automation?
Thomas, you want to answer that one? Yes, I can answer that. So most of the things that we see that are suitable for automation is those processes that have a well-defined step of list that you need to do, define inputs, and structure data. For example, as Raul previously mentioned, the financial department is one of the biggest ones in every company. Every company got a financial department. Accounts payable and accounts receivable are one of the most heavy workforce demanding tasks that you can do, because you need to verify the invoices, you need to submit payments, you need to verify numbers, amounts to see if they match. Most of those processes are done manually for most of the companies that we have seen. And an automation process can assist in almost in the entire processing of the finance department. From the very beginning to receiving a check to actually verifying if it was cashed. All those little steps can be actually implemented. We can also see RPA on the customer self-service department of many companies, especially when you're processing returns or you're processing warranties. For manufacturing departments, when you are actually getting a list of components to build a machine, to build a product, to generate from raw materials something. All those little steps can be also automated from the very beginning to selecting the materials, verifying the price, getting the supplier information. All these steps can actually be done through an RPA process. The way that you are going to do it is different from company to company, because most of this process can be monitored or can be done independently entirely without a human intervention, just for validations. But I believe that those are the ones that are most demanding and most common in most of the industries.
Yeah, one thing I would like to add, us being an IT consulting company, one of the other departments where automation is usually very visible is the IT department. Usually the IT department interacts with several systems, and you can do like export, import, and so it's also the IT department usually has a lot of processes that are very good candidates for automation. And as Thomas said, when you start looking at your automation pipeline and you build all the processes you would like to automate, you have to use certain criteria to evaluate them, like the steps, the input, the outputs, and that will tell you if it's doable or not, how feasible it is. All right.
Okay. Well, I think we're getting to the end of our time, and it looks like we don't currently have any more questions. I want to thank you two very much for joining me this afternoon to talk about RPA. At any time, if any of our viewers would like to see more about RPA, they can go to our website, and we have a section dedicated to it. And also, our open positions can be found on our career page. So thank you guys so much. I hope everybody enjoys their afternoon, and we'll see you for the next live stream.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Thanks, everyone.